It's WWE SmackDown, and you know what that means. Opening, incomplete, waste of time recaps, and random wrestler arrivals in the building. Brilliant use of airtime. Not like that could go towards an actual match or promo or something. John Cena is in the house, huge reactions as per usual. He cut an odd promo about the wrestling Mount Rushmore and how he believes he's the only star who belongs on there. Look, I get he's just healing it up. But if we look at this from a non-kayfabe view, for a second, business consistently went down throughout John Cena's run on top. And this is coming from someone who was a Cena fan growing up. Just to be clear, no hate here, but the fact is, the ushering in of the PG era and WWE's utter failure to find an equal babyface star to Cena who could appeal to audiences Cena didn't and be relied upon in the way that Cena was, proved to be quite bad for business for some time. Funny that. Great wrestler and promo, but comparing him to the likes of Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, and The Rock in this regard is quite glaring. From there, he gave us a strangely analytical promo about his retirement run so far, painting himself as an evil genius, Lex Luthor with a hair transplant and TRT. He gave us a fun little nod to the utter disgrace that is the double standards of CM sucks with the whole Saudi thing. And this promo, it was fine. John Cena, always a strong promo guy, but this heel run has become so repetitive as he miserably, monotonously begs fans to not like him anymore, even though most were looking at him through nostalgia goggles this year, and wanting to cheer him on in his closing stretch as a wrestler. This went on a bit, to be honest, kind of a relief when Cody Rhodes finally interrupted. There was a great feud that could have been here between these two, with a bitter, aging Cena turning heel on the main man filling his babyface shoes these days. Maybe he's jealous. Rhodes doesn't get the boos he used to, at least not in WWE. Maybe he's just so desperate for one last run in the sun, he stops caring. Maybe Hollywood's turned him insane, like the character work The Rock did back in 2003. Instead, we got Travis Scott shenanigans, the same argument segment between Cena and Rhodes every week heading into Mania, and a cumbersome, dreary match that badly exposed both John Cena's physical limitations now and Rhodes' difficulty in carrying a match on the big stage when his opponent isn't always keeping up. Rhodes brought up how he pinned Cena, and they might as well run the authority against Cody Rhodes here, given he got screwed at WrestleMania, pinned John Cena at Money in the Bank, and still has to go through King of the Ring to maybe, just maybe, get a shot at the gold. This also dragged with a silly John Ruthmore line from Rhodes, not as bad as last week's unforgivable Michael Hayth joke, but still quite lame. Randy Orton, alright, a cool wrestler finally, is in the house. He teased a feud with Rhodes down the line, and can you believe Rhodes has been back in the WWE for 3 years now? They've never even really teased Rhodes versus Orton until now. This is a money feud given their history, and the fact that Rhodes never got a proper win over Orton during his old run. Orton could be his White Whale, his Moby Dick, and the story of the old mentor and protege who've become friends in later years, falling out and going to war, is an easy sell. But this is the Triple Nose way, teasing major matches people want to see, but never actually giving them over properly. This one, Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk, Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley, the list goes on and on. Another interruption. This is just getting a bit silly, but hey, at least these guys are all stars. LA Knight, the would've, should've, could've been main event babyface star, perpetually locked up on SmackDown, far away from the secondary World Heavyweight title on Raw. He might actually have a shot at winning, is here. LA Knight made some quasi-shoot comments on fan frustration with his booking, and called the three in the ring the establishment of WWE. Surely that would be the actual bigwigs of the promotion, the guys making the real decisions up top. Triple H, Nick Khan, maybe this Lee Shitting guy. And he calls poor John Cena a balding bitch. What a low blow. And not even accurate anymore. Cena got his scalp sorted out. The bald spot a mile wide is long gone. Do you think he got it transplanted, or did he just have a small piece of bald scalp removed, and everything else sewed back together. Apparently that is, or at least was, a procedure they would do sometimes for situations like that. As over as these four are, this whole segment dragged. A plodding, talking, zero action start to a wrestling broadcast. The heat picked up slightly right at the end when Run Killings jumped Cena, but we'll discuss that a bit more later. Main thing of note here is the risky decision to bring both CM Punk's real-life hypocrisy and the general controversy surrounding performing in Saudi Arabia into the storyline. It will get heat, sure, but maybe not quite the heat that's safest for the promotion. Absolutely terrible segment next where John Cena and Nick Aldis were having themselves a little disagreement about Run Killings. Why is that terrible, you might ask? You couldn't hear any of it. Dreadful. What was the point in that? Give us the proper segment, or give us nothing at all. Having to try and lip read. Was this some kind of experimental mute promo Triple Noses trying out on us? So, King of the Ring. We've got longtime star Randy Orton. We've got aging, still could be a star, LA Knight. We've got WWE Never Was turned AEW Has Been, Malachi Black. And we've got former NXT prospect turned main roster choke artist Carmanlet Hayes, who was greeted by crickets from the audience. Great booking, he's really going far with that. Logically, Knight should win this, you would think. King of the Ring is meant to propel potential stars over to the next level, something it did relatively well with Gunther last year. Instead, Orton picks up the win. This isn't awful. Like Sami Zayn winning on Monday, Orton is a legend and still a credible star, but it was disappointing, and, as we'll see later tonight, it may well blow the big money potential of a feud Orton could do down the road. Weird start where Black and Hayes threw down as Orton and Knight just kinda watched for a second. From there, though the action picked up quickly with a lot of brawling and flash pins as all four men told a logical story of being desperate for a quick win in the utter chaos that is a fatal four-way. Do you remember that time WWE ran a pay-per-view around fatal four-way matches? Like it was some kind of dangerous new gimmick, and not just a singles match with 4 stars? 2010 really was the absolute drizzling shits of WWE. The trading of roll-ups led to the trading of finisher attempts, helping to up the pace and the heat of the match as all four began pulling out more dangerous tricks in their playbooks to get ahead. Hayes seemed to be the punching bag of the four, bumping and selling more than anyone else in the bout, frequently getting thrown out of the ring for his troubles as well. He made a comeback later on, including a neat springboard leg drop on Knight and a great Fosbury flop onto Black on the outside. Insanely difficult jump to pull off that one. Hayes absolutely brings it athletically when he's given the chance to shine, and if he were presented as, say, a brash, confident, fast underdog babyface who uses his skills to outwit larger opponents, he'd probably be very over by now. Why exactly he's this awkward heel who's not allowed to cut promos 9 weeks out of 10 is anyone's guess. A Hayes frog splash on Knight led to a near fall, and with the rapid-fire pace and strong action going, WWE, of course, cut to a commercial to kill the vibe for those watching at home. Orton had a quick run on top, planting everyone with power slams, and LA Knight later had a hot run of his own, tragically cut short by the arrival of Zest Rollins' men. His top men, if you will. Bron and Brunson, B&B Security, 2 short kings in the house. They handed Knight a beating, including an explosive spear from Breaker, truly the best spear in the business right now by a wide, wide margin. This led to a slick finish where Hayes went for a big dive on Knight, but was caught with an RKO from Orton, so Knight still took a splash here before eating the pin from the Viper. Rock solid TV match, very fun, good action all round. Orton advancing means we get him versus Sami Zayn next week. I know Orton's a face now, and only saves the punt for bad guys like John Cena, but a punt to Zayn might clear his head of his relentless feelings he's droning on about. Bring back funny heel Zayn, I say, this sad soy boy hipster obsessed with friendships in a single-player medium like wrestling. He needs to go, it's no good. Jacob Fatu next, big pop from the crowd. Jacob Fatu is meant to be a maniac, a wrecking ball, a psycho beast. Regardless, Fatu threw his hat into the ring for Sami Zayn's Hurt Feelings Championship when he shouted about Solo Sikoa snaking on him. Pretty sure that means betrayal, which is a bit much. given all Sikoa did was call him less than intelligent behind his back last week. Sure, it's a bit two-faced, it's a bit catty, but that's not a betrayal. Sikoa in kayfabe was always trying to have Fatu's back before last week. Despite being a cartoon villain, Sikoa's the wronged party here, bringing a guy into the company, considering him a friend and an ally, and then getting absolutely obliterated for one out-of-pocket comment. Shocking. How does this make Fatu a face, especially when he was Sikoa's goon, doing his dirty work last year? He said something almost incomprehensible about needing to show Sikoa what happens when you don't get in where you fit in, okay. Gotta say, a little bit of Fatu on the mic goes a long way. This was a surprisingly whiny promo from a guy who's meant to be super threatening and is normally very entertaining. And once again, poor Sikoa's the strangely sympathetic character here as he revealed via Titantron that he's prepared to forgive Fatu next week. Provided, of course, Fatu goes back to being his pal, telling him he loves him like the good old days of just last year. Presumably this will be a setup for Sikoa to get some payback on Fatu. Maybe the Tonga boys return. Maybe the long-absent, long-invisible Hikuleo will finally arrive. Because remember, guys, remember this. WWE does not bench people. And yes, Omos did sign a new contract recently, why do you ask? Anyways, I just discovered Hikuleo actually worked main event last night, so maybe WWE just forgot about him until now or something. Some boring segments with the women's mid-card division next, including Zelina Vega revealing she wants to face off with Julia next week. Not face her, oh no. Face off. A little face-off, presumably one where Julia will have to struggle through an English-language promo in front of a live crowd. It reminds me of Shinsuke Nakamura in 2017. He already had a thick, rural Japanese accent and hints of a speech impediment, but WWE still made him cut live TV promos with his mouth guard still in. Set up to fail. Disgraceful. Well, at least Julia's face moves normally. Normal facial expressions is always a struggle for poor Nakamura. Queen of the Ring next. Jade Cargill, not a great wrestler frankly, but looks and presents herself like a star, has charisma, is clearly someone WWE have big plans for. Nepo Snacks only here because The Rock has got himself a comfy little gig with TKO. A botch machine. Nia Jax, that is, not The Rock. Terrible soccer mum style promos, no energy or charisma. Enjoys a bit of go-away heat sometimes. Michin, that lady. Married to Keith Lee, do you remember him? She wrestles on SmackDown, I think. Well, she's wrestling on SmackDown tonight, I can tell you that much. Pie Eater Glutton. Exactly what would happen if Bronson Reed went through gender reassignment surgery, dyed his hair blonde or something, and stopped having any personality or intensity. And with all of that in mind with Piper Niven, I am quite glad Reed seems to be happy to remain a man for now. Yeah, so it really didn't take a genius to figure out who was winning here. This was largely a showcase for Cargill, who planted Niven with the Jaded in a strong spot in fairness to win the match. The pace was fast, with these four wisely keeping the action moving as is needed in these multi-star matches before fans start realizing how clunky and awkward exchanges between more than two wrestlers at a time can become. The Fat Chick Mafia was a key part of this, as Snacks and Glutton formed an alliance against the two women who actually hit the gym and watch what they eat day to day. I can confirm from my own office life that birds of a feather do indeed flock together, and when you have more than one fat chick in management, go find another job. Overall, though, this was a well-booked match for what it was, serving as an effective showcase of Jade Cargill, who will now wrestle Dirty Dumb's side piece, Roxanne Perez, in a comical mismatch next week. Given Cargill is a jacked star in the making that the WWE have been working on for a good 18 months or so now, who was unbeaten for a long stretch in AEW and still carries a bit of that aura here. You would think she'd be a shoo-in to win next week, but her booking has been oddly scattershot between the ropes, including a surprising singles loss to Liv Morgan in her first singles bout of the year this year, so who knows. Naomi out next, complaining about fans being surprised she won Money in the Bank. Many fans were, yes. It was quite shocking to see a long-time jobber, who infamously stormed out of the promotion only to come back in shame, tail tucked between her legs a year or so later, get the big push. That being said, her heel turn this year has shown layers of personality and interest no one has ever expected from Naomi, so in that regard, it's not too shocking WWE are looking to cash in, no pun intended, while the heat is still in the building. She cut a decent heel promo remembering when Tiffany Stratton had the money in the bank, and how now was time for Naomi to have her revenge. Unfortunately, saying Stratton's name makes her appear like Joe Hendry with a boob job, so I had to get my earplugs ready. Stratton tried to goad Naomi into cashing in right then and there, which Naomi laughed off, before promising to make Stratton's life hell. Fair enough. For some reason, Nepo Snacks jumped Stratton after this. We've already seen the never-ending slug that was their friends-turned-enemies storyline play out completely. And now Snacks, fresh off failing to advance in the Queen of the Ring tournament for a shot at the gold, attacks the champion to presumably set up a title bout for herself anyway. Why doesn't everyone do that? Much like John Cena just letting CM Punk challenge him, and Punk having the gall to challenge him when in kayfabe he hasn't won a match in months. The sheer laziness of this stuff at the moment is mind-boggling. Intelligence insulting, really, even by the low standards of wrestling. The middle-aged has-been guns took on two jobbers from the Wyatt Sucks next. Match kicked off with Chris Sabin on the back foot, taking a beating from these utter jabronis. Sabin eventually escaped jobber duty, tagging in Alex Shelley for a quick comeback. Commercial break, and then when we're back, Shelley and one of the Wyatt Sucks guys are grounded. We've got no idea why. Always with cutting matches in half with these pathetic ad breaks, put them over the entrances. We don't need to see the same entrances every week, surely. The match revolved around the crafty guns using their slick double-team offense to hold their own against their bigger, more vicious opponents. Ultimately, though, it wasn't enough, as looking at Jub Dallas, what am I saying? Looking at Uncle Jubby somehow ensured the Sucks boys won quickly with a top rope leg drop. Before the match, there was this quick segment of Nick Aldis and the men's tag division all acting like they're scared of the Wyatt Sucks, making them all look like absolute tomato cans in the process. These guys are lame, and their hokey supernatural bum fluff does not fit the usual tone of the show Triple Nose aims for. They're not intimidating, but more importantly, they're just not very interesting. Bray Wyatt himself used to be somewhat interesting. He'd cut some good promos and do some colourful character work. But it always ran thin eventually, and this undercard tribute act is not cutting the mustard, and is instead just making everyone else involved with them look bad. John Cena saw Jimmy Uso backstage and told him to tell Ron Killings to meet him in the ring, and then it hit me. Jimmy Uso is R-Truth's handler. Jimmy Uso is Little Jimmy. And it was only when Truth was fired and briefly away from Uso that he was finally able to shed the R-Truth simpleton gimmick he'd had for so long. Mind-blowing twist. Let's hope Jimmy Uso doesn't have a similar retardation effect on Jey Uso when they inevitably reunite quite soon. Although, of course, the ship might have already sailed for the Yeet man in that regard, come to think of it. Cena's out next for more talking. My goodness, this man loves the sound of his own voice. He wants Ron Killings out now. He wants revenge for the sneak attacks. Instead, CM Punk's music hits. The Harvey Dent of professional wrestling. A man who flip-flops more on his own beliefs and values than the Big Show, going from heel to face back in the day. Big pop from the crowd, to be fair to him. Punk tried to be a man of the people, talking about Cena disrespecting the fans, and then seemingly trying to appeal to Cena's good side, whatever's left of it. A typically self-indulgent, wordy Punk promo making way for Cena to give us some very one-dimensional villainy, claiming that all that matters in life is being champion. Surely his Hollywood career is an even bigger deal to him at this point, but anyways. Punk then tried to get serious and profound, when he said you can tell a strong man a lie to offend him. Is Punk seriously saying he's a strong man and calling him a hypocrite is a lie? Is he serious right now? And then also, you can tell a weak man the truth to offend him. Look, John Cena might not be the weightlifting beast he used to be anymore, but he's still strong, and clearly is an insanely hard worker. None of this really worked in or out of kayfabe, even with Cena being the jerk heel now. Punk hilariously claimed Cena couldn't beat him, even though we saw it happen many times back in the day, and that he's going to save wrestling from Cena. This inverted angle of their 2011 feud was a really cool idea, but these promos and the general embarrassment of Punk going to Saudi Arabia is tainting it horribly. Punk's trash talk, including making fun of Cena's shirt, didn't really land, and noting how Cena sounded like 2011 Punk, while true, just wasn't that compelling. For a guy who's often hit very hard on the microphone in his career, Punk came across as soft, and oddly apologetic throughout this promo. Punk goes telling us that he'd go to Mars to wrestle Cena. What is this, Elon Musk wrestling? And then he'd go to hell, which maybe he will someday, maybe. Lame line of seeing through John Cena, little nod to Cena's you can't see me stuff, of course. Man, this was bland and blah, all just Punk skirting over admitting he is indeed wrestling in Saudi Arabia for the big money, despite the big stink he's made over the years. I could try and do some full-on roasting of this, but it was kind of depressing watching these two as old men, running a sellout storyline on their way to another messy blood money show. Ron Killings jumped John Cena as Punk left, maybe a little homage to his involvement with Cena during the original Punk and Cena feud in 2011. You know what they say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Punk trying to be the good guy and hero at this point is just quite funny. In AEW, he trashed the WWE for being full of bootlickers. He suggested that WWE was barely even wrestling during his AEW debut promo. He made fun of headlining the first night of a multi-night WrestleMania. He famously threw The Miz under a bus over the Saudi shows. Now that he's back in WWE, though, he is a bootlicker, constantly kissing the company's ass publicly, headlining night one of a multi-night WrestleMania, calling the promotion his home, and now heading off to Saudi Arabia. And if you point any of this stuff out, by the way, you must be an AEW mark! That's how the mind of the NPC wrestling fan works. It's incredibly basic, binary, unproven nonsense. I had a couple of retards like that in my recent Raw review.
I can barely hear you with Tony Khan's dick in your mouth. Ow!
When it's these same spastics who would have been trashing Punk when he was in AEW. And I want you retardaloids out there, you idiots with your brain-dead normie comments like that, I want you to know. It's slop-gobbling, half-wit, backdrop people like you, which is why entertainment is so bad now. Because you'll consume anything, defend it nonsensically like it's of personal value to you, and never have enough of a brain to actually engage with, or think about what it is that you're watching, and if it's actually any good or not. As if the only reason anyone could criticize anything in WWE is if they're an AEW shill, or vice versa, of course, either way. John Cena is wrestling Ron Killings next week, so that's two of Cena's final singles matches wasted on this long-time undercard jobber. And now one of his last singles matches just given away on the regular shows as well. Brilliant. Just brilliant. Women's Queen of the Ring qualifiers next. Alexa Bliss is quite over, and back, after a long stretch on maternity leave, still trying to play a crazy, spooky lady and just coming off as a lame theatre kid. Charlotte Facelift has a lot of name value, but has struggled to find her footing since returning back in January, and is now wedged into an awkward heel role of being upset over the fans rejecting her yet again. No one cares about the other two people in this match, let's move on. Bizarre finish here. Charlotte Flair flattened Candice LeNopup with a spear, and then trapped that lady from Chelsea Green's group in the figure 8. Alexa Bliss then runs in and hits Candice LeJub with her sister Abigail for the win. Okay, fine choice of winner. Flair would have been okay too. The odd part here was Flair kept the figure 8 on, hoping her opponent would tap out before the ref counted 3 on Bliss's pin on LeFlop. It was somewhat dramatic, but it also made Flair look like a fool, who drastically overestimated her own finisher. But hey, at least LeFlop didn't win. There's always a bright side. Some people are religious in this world, some are not. LeFlop and her husband, Johnny Generic, are very religious. As I mentioned in my WrestleMania review, they worship Triple Nose as their deity, even wearing pictures of his face on their clothing. Goodness knows what they do behind closed doors to show him how much they love him. But given they've been useless kiss-asses to levels once considered unthinkable, there's always that off chance they get to win something, despite not being even vaguely over or interesting at all. Match itself was a step down from the earlier Queen in the Ring qualifier, with little of note beyond the strange finish. The story largely revolved around the two jobbers trying to team up to beat Charlotte Flair, but Flair managing to overpower them repeatedly. All while Bliss snuck about here and there trying to seek out the advantage. Another tease of Punk versus Rhodes next. Maybe one of these days it'll actually happen. Who knows? Punk wishes Rhodes good luck in the King of the Ring. Yeah, that was it. There you go. Right, here we go. The main event, King of the Ring. We've got Cody Rhodes, the lead babyface of the whole promotion, coming off of a frustrating main event loss at WrestleMania and a revenge tag win at Money in the Bank. And the rematch with John Cena is already getting teased. Damian Priest, a triple-nose pet project, who had a botchy world title run last year. A surprisingly good run as a babyface straight after, and then got horribly cooled off once he was moved to SmackDown earlier this year. He was also going to feud with Jacob Fatu for the US belt, until that seemingly just got forgotten about. So it's safe to say there are no upper card plans for the former El Campeon. And Jabbe, good work rate, can't speak properly, English, Spanish, it doesn't matter, subtitles can't keep up and neither can we. Unless he figures out how to communicate and have a personality, he's going nowhere. Shinsuke Jabamura, a former New Japan star turned long-time WWE flop, who pointlessly ruined LA Knight's first US title run last year. Wow. Gee, I wonder who'll win this one, it's just so unpredictable. The opening moment saw a four-way stare-down before Nakamura left the ring. Rhodes immediately diving onto him to teach him a lesson for being cowardly was quite a funny way to kick things off. From there, we got some multi-man brawling in and around the ring, peaking with a great moonsault to the outside by Andrade, as the match cuts to the 7 millionth ad break of the broadcast. Unbelievable. Neat spot where Rhodes overcame a beating from Nakamura, reversing a knee strike into a figure four before getting crashed by Andrade, who flew in with a slick frog splash to break up the hold. Priest took up the strong guy role in this match, throwing some big moves around using his size, and at one point sending Nakamura packing with an axe handle on the outside before dominating in the ring. Rhodes overcame his old school attempt though, leading to a Nakamura submission attack. This was all fine action, good TV main event, until Rhodes wheeled out the Slim Jim table. Again with this nonsense, 2 weeks in a row, the product placement's just completely out of control. Normally, funnily enough, it is a heel spot, when a wrestler introduces a weapon to the bout, only for it to then be used against them. Here, after teasing a huge superplex on Andrade through the table, it wound up being Rhodes who crashed into it, off of a Nakamura dropkick. Very odd match booking for who was normally meant to be their most noble and morally upright babyface character. Another ad break, of course, leading into the three who didn't hit a table going at it, with Andrade really carrying the action in fairness to him. Very good performance. Rhodes made a Superman comeback, leading into the final sequences of the bout, where everyone went for their finishes. Rhodes escaped a razor's edge attempt from Priest, before taking the former Judgment Day heavy out with a Cody cutter. From there, he planted first Andrade and then Nakamura with the crossroads to get the win. Solid match, good fun, ultimately revolved around Rhodes reasserting himself as a top dog, including looking very dominant in the closing stretch of this bout, despite the big table bump. Not a surprising result, but the right one for business, as none of the other three are over enough to warrant a big push in this tournament right now. As always, a bit better than Raw, but still a flawed show with too much talking and too many ads, leading to a rather disjointed episode structure. For now, an Orton vs Rhodes clash within the King of the Ring tournament is looking increasingly likely. Good news for the tournament, bad news for the money this match could have made with a proper angle and build behind it. But hey, you know what? At the end of the day, what really matters is that CM Mark is an utter disgrace to himself and everything he supposedly stands for. What a joke.